George the Giant Slayer is a fascinating character, a former kidnap survivor who has become one of the most interesting new YouTubers in the pop culture space. And I like his tagline.
All right, let's dive into this in a more casual, conversational style. What you've got here is basically a sprawling takedown of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, told through the lens of a culture war. The chat between George, the YouTuber, and the host lays out a brutal case. Harry and Meghan aren't just unlucky, misunderstood ex-royals.
Which is that giant slayers themselves confront the false giants that loom large over life. And of course, a couple of those false giants who George has been slaying and certainly causing a lot of interest here in the United Kingdom is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And I'm delighted that George joins me now to discuss exactly what he has discovered. So, George, so great to have you on Outspoken for the first time. Your channel is brilliant. Now, what was it that first got you interested in this growing saga of Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and what has become, let's be honest, and I know we'll talk much about this, but what has become a Hollywood nightmare?
Well, first, thank you for having me on. Love your show. Love everything that you do and the way you stand up and fight. What got me interested is the fact that, we were raised by my grandmother honoring the British monarchy, because she was in Auschwitz for 3 years because she used to hide British soldiers during World War II. So we had the greatest respect for the monarchy. I started to notice pretty much after the wedding when they decided to leave, since it's been almost now, 5 years since Megxit.
Yes,
when
5
they
years
came
since
to
Megxit, almost exactly.
When they came to the US and they started involving themselves in cultural matters, I was like, this is the moment to talk about them, because they weren't trying to lead their private life. You know, the whole privacy tour, they didn't try to do that. They weren't going, we're going to go about our life, do our own business. They decided to insert themselves to lead this new type of woke revolution. And I was like, well, it's time somebody call them out, because they, to me, represent the pinnacle of the cultural rot that's going on in Hollywood that's trying to pervert Western culture.
Exactly. That's what's so interesting, isn't it? It's so much bigger, George, than just these two narcissistic human beings and all of the issues that they have. But do you get the sense, because I've obviously watched your videos where you talk a lot about the failure of the Netflix deal, for example, the flops, with your pop culture hat on, do you think they have a chance of revival now, or is it over?
I think everything now is the beginning of the end. I don't really see Netflix renewing their contract, except unless they are trying to wait for the eventual divorce. Look, no couple like this can succeed in life, let alone in Hollywood, when they're both competing against each other and when they both are basically megalomaniacs. Think about it. In Hollywood, you have a couple who are now following either together or separate. They're following their own paths. They come together every once in a while to do these publicity stunts. And now they've put on shows. You're talking about 4 failures in a row. The only success that they've actually ever had was the original Harry and Meghan series. And that's because that's exactly what Netflix wanted. They wanted someone who was going to come mudslinging for money against the royal family. That's not what they want to do. They use that to get their foot in the door. And afterwards, every other property has collapsed. I mean, the Netflix trailer for With Love, Meghan has one of the lowest views in Netflix's history for a YouTube trailer.
Wow,
so I don't think they're going anywhere.
Isn't it? It is astonishing when you think of that, and all of the opportunities that they had and wasted. Why do you think they were never prepared to put the hard work in, though? Because I think probably one of the most damning criticisms, and certainly the final nail in their Hollywood coffin, was when Bill Simmons, who had been their boss at Spotify, came out and described them as effing grifters. Now, people like me had been reporting on their work-shy nature from within the royal family for years and years. But in Hollywood, you can't get away with that, can you? If you are getting these multi-million-dollar deals, or in their case, tens of millions of dollars of deals. You have to produce the content. And I mean, when it came to Harry and Spotify, there was one Christmas podcast where we heard literally a few words from him. That was it.
They're calculated operators whose downfall in Hollywood is proof they're running out of road. George frames Harry and Meghan as false giants, basically people who loom large in pop culture but don't actually have substance. That's what made him start covering them. His background is important. His family deeply respected the monarchy, thanks to his grandmother's connection to British soldiers in World War II.
I know when it comes to the Megans, the reality is they're entitled. They feel entitled. They're not people who work. You always hear that. When you had the holy Bibles of Hollywood from Vanity Fair and the Hollywood Reporter and Deadline call them out. I mean, that was, again, the end. That was the nail in the coffin. But think about it. You take somebody like Meghan, who was a D-list actress, without marrying Harry, would anybody know her today? That's the fact that a lot of people don't seem to address. Nobody would know her today. No one. Her career was over. She basically had a long stint of cameos. And when you actually look at it, and the research that I've been doing for another video, is when you look at her relationships, each one of her relationships coincides with the films or television shows that she was doing at the time, like with Trevor Engelson. She gets together with him when he makes his first movie, and all of a sudden, she ends up on a Disney property, an FX property for Fringe, ends up on Castle. It goes one after the other. He even put her in his own film. Once she reached the apex of what she thought she could get from him, she's like, okay, I'm going to go now. She was with Suits, and then she starts to strategize a way, in my opinion, to manipulate her way into Prince Harry's circle. Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, through Misha Nunu, and the rest is history. But no, I think they're pretty much done in Hollywood, and Hollywood has slammed the door shut on the couple.
See, that's what is very interesting to me, George, and I just want to dive in a little bit deeper to that. Was this a plot all along? Because I've done so much reporting that no one else did on Meghan's showbiz days, her entertainment days, because at that point, that was the world that I was operating in. I was in the space of entertainment and show business too. And so what I had discovered is that post-Trevor, Meghan had absolutely decided that she wanted to move to the United Kingdom. She had it in her head 100% that she was going to find a famous British bloke. Now, the types of famous British blokes that she was looking at, right, were long way down the Hollywood ladder. Really nice guys, but by the way, so this is not at all a slight on them. And I revealed all of these stories. She was going after Matt Cardle, who had won the X Factor in the year that One Direction competed here in the UK. She was going after Max George, a really nice guy who had had a bit of fame as the lead singer of the boy band The Wanted. She was going after Ashley Cole, who was a famous footballer over here, who was known as a bit of a love rat. Now, this was the level she was aiming at. So do you think she was almost chancing her luck when it came to Harry and trying to build those relationships with the royals or the minor royals, which, by the way, we should point out happened through the Soho House connection? That's where the Beatrice and Eugenie fit into the mix.
Correct. I don't think it was luck. I don't think it was happenstance. I think she was tactical about it. I think this is where a lot of people call her brilliant. I don't, because if she was actually brilliant, she would have everything she would want. She would not only be a star, she would be regarded as a real royal, but she isn't. I thought it was tactical. I thought it was strategic, because you have to look at the timing of it all. The way that she made these friendships with Misha Nunu, what door that opened up to, and going to Soho House, what door that opened up to. I thought this was a strategy all along. And I think their biggest problem is this is what keeps happening. To answer your previous question, they end up in Hollywood and they thought everyone was going to bow down to them, except in Hollywood, they have their own royalty. Except all of those people actually have to work their butts off to climb the ladder. And when everyone didn't bow down to them, they were shocked. So what you end up having is you have the Meghans view themselves as great whites, even though they're actually guppies, but in a pond filled with killer sharks, with killer whales. It just doesn't work. They want everyone to obey them. I mean, we saw it in all these reports, whether you want to call it girl number 40 from Deal or No Deal, how she has temper tantrums and wants to be a tyrant, Or you have Harry in the letter that I believe is going to leak about Dr. Sophie Chandaka and the way that he demanded her to come to Meghan's defense. No, I think they believe everybody owes them something.
Yeah, I mean, there is absolutely no doubt that they have a track record of treating people terribly, of bullying. And another thing that I've learned, I guess, in my couple of decades covering very, very famous people, George, is that very often it's the most famous, the most A-list, the most successful who actually treat people the best. The people who tend to punch down, who tend to bully their staff, who tend to drive people into therapy, who are demanding, who are sending emails at 5:30 in the morning, those types of people are often the ones who are desperately climbing the ladder and looking for a status that they feel like they deserve but don't have.
Oh, exactly. I mean, look at Keanu Reeves. He is famous for the fact of he is just a man who his job is acting. But how many times has he been caught with people like here? He was sitting on a park bench in New York City where someone sat next to me and they were hungry. He's like, here's my sandwich. Or going on a ride between airports because his flight was delayed on a van with a bunch of people. You have actors who are actually real, decent human beings, and they don't hunt for the spotlight. They don't set up paparazzi gigs. They're not looking for that. It's something that they love to do. It's their professional. That's it. When Meghan, look at it, with Love Meghan, for example, or her new podcast, do you see any Hollywood glitterati coming to her? Where's Beyonce? Where's Taylor Swift? She's talking to, what was it? One of them is, I think was today, is her, was it a hairstylist or a makeup stylist?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Katie Lee.
The list,
Katie Lee, who is the effectively colorist. She was Meghan's hair colorist, and she's running a business called Highbrow Hippie, and that's great. Good on her for trying to make something of herself. But the problem is, she is the hired help. And so you can tell in that podcast, George, that this is a woman who's utterly terrified of Meghan, who has to say, you're the most amazing person, everything's about you. And there's a really mortifying moment, actually, during the podcast where Katie sort of drops into the conversation that she's actually got a boyfriend, and Meghan is so horrified that she hasn't been told because it's always about her. And if you're always making it about her, if you're always making it about you, people don't feel like they want to share that sort of information with you.
George's conclusion is blunt. Their Hollywood chapter is over. They'll limp along with minor projects, but the big players have closed the door. Divorce is likely, with Meghan using it to relaunch herself and Harry left isolated. More importantly, the damage to the monarchy has already been done. For the first time in modern history, a senior royal has waged a public, sustained campaign against his own family.
Absolutely. Again, I go back to with Love Meghan. I think that series did more damage to both Harry and Meghan's reputation than anything almost they've ever done since the wedding and the Oprah interview, even Spare. The way that she was treating people. I mean, you could tell almost the editing was botched completely. But when she decides to make something for the cameraman, or when she puts the edible flowers on everything, and the way she's speaking about herself, or when she can't keep her origin story straight. I was a latchkey kid that grew up with fast food. You know, rewind back to 2016 when she was judging that competition for junior master chefs. And all of a sudden you had those where she's saying, oh, no, you know, you could be like me. I was raised on this California farm to fresh table food. It's like, which is it? And this is what continually happens. But the bigger that she gets, the more exposure she has. And no one can keep, you know, somebody who's lying all the time, they can't keep their story straight. And you start to see that this is not a human being. This is someone who's an empty mask. And they're going to continue to put on one mask after the other to reach their goals. I think that's what keeps happening.
Oh, totally. I mean, the origin story thing is so shocking because what she's done is actually try to almost like exorcise the Markles from her life, you know, get rid of these people because they're white and, you know, they're sort of, I guess, what we in the United Kingdom would call working class, but I would call them good, honest, hardworking Americans who have made something of their lives are upwardly mobile. But that wasn't the story that Meghan wanted. She knew what she needed to ensnare Harry was this story of cultural battles, of racism, which just wasn't actually part of her life. But look, before we go on, let's just have a listen. I'll get your reaction to the moment from her podcast this week. I mean, so insincere, so inauthentic, but also so telling, wasn't it? That she hadn't opened up to Meghan about this new guy in her life. And you can tell that Meghan's immediate reaction is, I'm not happy for you. I'm annoyed. You should have told me this.
Right. I think that's, again, going to one of the biggest problems is today, this isn't the 1990s. I think that's her biggest issue. She's operating like this is 1995 to 2005. We're talking about peak. This is the peak age of the internet. And everyone today wants authenticity. They want you to be yourself. This is not about, let me put on a show. This is lifestyles of the rich and famous, or we're going to walk around and I'm going to show you all the lovely. No, they want to see those things, but they want to see what's under your skin, who you are, what moves you, what are your emotions, what drives you. And she continues to perform. When you're listening to her podcast, it doesn't sound like a founder who's trying to get advice from other founders. It sounds like someone who's pretending. What do I have to do today to get people to like me? How do I present this image? It's the same way when she told the New York Times a couple of weeks ago, well, you actually know when Harry isn't here, I feed the kids frozen dinners, frozen foods right out of there. No. This is, again, all an act. And
yes,
that hypocrisy.
Her whole life is one big act.
Yep. And that hypocrisy is what I think that's exactly what's enduring her. She's getting, in many ways, the closer that she gets to what she wants in her mind, being on television, being on a streaming show, being on a podcast, somewhere in the headlines every day, the closer I believe it comes to unraveling everything she wants.
So where does it go, in your view?
Well, I think eventually it's going to lead to a divorce because, like I said in the beginning, when we first started talking, how do you have a couple? Look, marriage is hard enough. But when you have a couple that's competing against one another, they may not call it that, but they're both vying for headlines for their own reasons. She wants it so she can become, a Hollywood queen because it's something she couldn't do in the United Kingdom. Harry wants to be able to show everybody in the world and probably his family at the same time, look what I've accomplished on my own. I didn't need anyone. When you have that happening, it is inevitable that they're going to break up. Today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, it's going to happen. When that happens, then we're going to start to see another layer come off. The real Meghan, where she's going to be talking about exactly the way she treated her father, because that's the example. She's going to do the same thing to Harry. Do you know what I suffered when I was married to him? That's what we're going to get.
Totally. And the guy should be terrified. I mean, how on earth can you stay with a woman when Vanity Fair, a mainstream media outlet that you should trust, is backing up what people like me had been saying for years, George, which is that Meghan is already shopping around the divorce book. That's the reason she hasn't written her own autobiography yet, because she doesn't want to have to write a book, George, where she says a whole load of positive things about her husband. She needs to save that. And the problem is, I know a lot of people say, oh, Harry's stupid, he's being manipulated. But I mean, come on, wake up.
It's hard to wake up. Look, you have She Who Must Be Obeyed and a ginger handbag. When someone's gripping that tight onto you, it's very difficult for him to wake up. But I also don't think he wants to wake up. I differ with many people where they say Harry has been duped. There's a level of that.
He wanted to be duped, though.
Yes.
That's the point.
I believe. Exactly, Dan. I believe that he married his soulmate. And what I mean by soulmate is he found a murder weapon to go after his family, to take out all of his envy, all of his bitterness. Yes. And I think that's what he enjoyed, but now he's caught up in it.
Whether you see it as a tragic love story gone wrong or a long-planned vendetta, it's unprecedented. Harry and Meghan may fade, but the cracks they've exposed in the monarchy and the cultural rifts they symbolize will linger. This isn't just about a couple falling out with their family. It's about what happens when personal bitterness becomes global entertainment. Harry and Meghan tried to weaponize Hollywood against the monarchy. For a time, it worked. But without substance, without authenticity, without hard work, it all collapsed. And maybe that's the most telling part. Their story was never really about building something. It was about tearing something down. Harry wanted revenge. Meghan wanted status. Together, they made headlines. But long-term, they burned through their credibility. The real question now isn't whether Hollywood wants them back. It doesn't. The question is whether Harry, once he's lost Meghan too, will realize what he destroyed, and whether it will be far too late.